Mr. Brennan. Oh, this...
I've been up since 1941, which was a long time ago.
Well, I was going to say you...
35 years my wife has been on time.
What if the man who helped build Hollywood's golden age secretly believed it was destroying America from the inside? Walter Brennan wasn't just a three-time Oscar winner, he was quietly keeping a list. Not of accolades, but of actors he believed were dangerous. Heroes like James Stewart, icons like Elizabeth Taylor, even beloved voices like Bing Crosby. But why? And what does that list say about the battle between fame, faith, and a country in cultural freefall? Beneath the red carpets and studio lights, there was another war being fought, quietly, bitterly, and personally. And it's one few people even knew existed. Until now. There's something you don't know about Walter Brennan's voice. It wasn't just his acting that made him unforgettable. From the very first line, there's a subtle mystery in that raspy timbre, and you'll want to hear the real reason behind it. Born in Lynn, Massachusetts, on July 25, 1894, Brennan grew up in a tight-knit Irish-American family that prized grit over glamour. Early on, he learned humility and perseverance, qualities that would define not just his characters, but the man himself. Before fame, he worked as a lumberjack, bank clerk, even a real estate speculator in California, until the Great Depression wiped out his savings. Hook. Imagine building a fortune only to lose it all overnight. That collapse wasn't the end for Brennan. It was his rebirth. World War I interrupted that life. As a private in the 101st Field Artillery in France, he fought in the trenches, returned home with a set of scars, unseen but audible. His famously rough voice, likely from gas exposure or a jaw injury, which became his signature. His voice still fascinates scholars today as a marker of authenticity in every performance. When silent film faded and talkies emerged, Brennan's weathered look and reedy voice became an asset. He slipped into Hollywood quietly, first as an extra in 1925 at Universal, earning just $7.50 a day, equivalent to about $130 now. Hook. He could have stayed unnoticed forever, but fate had different plans. By the mid-1930s, that low-budget beginning transformed into something extraordinary. In 1936, Brennan delivered Swan Bostrom in Come and Get It, his first major role, grizzled, emotionally raw, unforgettable. That performance earned him his first Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, and suddenly the supporting actor category had a new gold standard. 2 years later, he won again for Kentucky, then a third time in 1940 for The Westerner, where he played Judge Roy Bean opposite Gary Cooper. It's a record that still stands. No other actor, man or woman, has won 3 Oscars in that category. Something about his modest beginnings and resilience connects to every scene he's in. Hook. Why does one man hold that unbroken record? During the 40s and 50s, Brennan became Hollywood's favorite sidekick. Whether in Red River or Rio Bravo, he brought warmth, tension, humor. He stood shoulder to shoulder with giants, John Wayne, Howard Hawks, William Wyler, and each time he stole scenes with a gesture, a sigh, a knowing glance. Hook. His presence was so magnetic that extras voted him 3 times, a fact that led to changes in how Oscars were awarded. By the late 50s, Brennan made another leap, this time into American living rooms with The Real McCoys, 1957 to 1963, playing Grandpa Amos McCoy. Suddenly, his weathered charm was a weekly tradition, gruff on the surface, warm at the core. That series brought him closer to the public than any Western ever could. Off-screen, he was different. In 1920, he married Ruth Caroline Wells, a partnership that lasted 54 years. rare in show business. Ruth, quiet and steadfast, grounded him through every triumph and setback. They had 3 children, Arthur, Walter Jr., and Ruth, raised with the same discipline and humility Walter carried on screen. Hook. Imagine the public gruffness hiding a loving father who never let fame eclipse family. That private devotion shaped the man behind the characters. But there was another side most didn't see. Politically, Brennan was a staunch conservative. A member of the John Birch Society, he supported Barry Goldwater in 1964, and later George Wallace. He even served as finance chairman and recorded ads for John Schmitz in 1972, calling Nixon too liberal. What's surprising is how juxtaposed this political identity was against his cowboy on-screen charm. Hook. How could beloved Grandpa McCoy align with radicals so widely criticized? Beyond acting, he owned property, a 12,000-acre cattle ranch in Oregon, and even dabbled in music. His spoken word hit Old Rivers, about a farmer and a mule, climbed the charts in 1963, crossing over between country and pop. That success proved he could captivate audiences with just his voice and story. By the late 60s, as Hollywood evolved, Brennan remained active. He took roles in series like Tycoon and The Guns of Will Sonnet, and appeared in Disney films well into his 70s. Hook? He never stopped working. Behind the scenes, letters and diaries reveal a thoughtful man, celebrated by biographers as a real American character. Fellow actor Norman Lloyd called him one of nature's noblemen. He lived quietly in Oxnard, California, until his death from emphysema on September 21, 1974. A life full, complicated, always compelling. So far, we've barely scratched the surface. The mystery of his voice, the record-breaking Oscars, the private man behind the public figure, the controversial politics. Picking up where we left off, Brennan's life took a dramatic turn in 1940 when he traded Hollywood lights for the wild openness of northeastern Oregon. He poured his heart into buying the sprawling 12,000-acre Lightning Creek Ranch, 20 miles north of Joseph, driven by a yearning for hard work and wide horizons that matched his own rugged spirit. Hook. What drove a 3-time Oscar winner to leave fame behind for cattle and dirt? That decision became the anchor of his second life, grounded in the same values he had carried into every character he played. On that ranch, between filming seasons, he wasn't Grandpa McCoy or Judge Roy Bean. He was just Walter, the cowboy. He herded livestock, rode horses across steep mountain valleys, and breathed relief into the quiet air of the Wallowa Mountains. Locals say he never treated that land like a prop. It was his refuge. New research notes that some of his children and grandchildren still work the same fields, keeping his legacy alive. Hook. Imagine retreating to a place so real. You break hard with your own Hollywood self. He didn't just settle. He invested in that community. Brennan built the Indian Lodge Motel, a nod to Chief Joseph and the Nez Perce, and even put up a movie theater and a variety store, bringing entertainment and commerce to a town that once had few attractions. Hook. The cowboy star becoming small-town benefactor. Few knew that was part of his story. He helped ignite Chief Joseph Days, a rodeo celebration still thriving today, and even donned a clown suit or led the marching band during opening parades. His roots in Joseph were genuine and deep, and the town remembers. But while he embraced rural life, Brennan never fully escaped controversy. As Hollywood changed, he grew louder about his beliefs. He aligned with the John Birch Society, supported Goldwater and George Wallace, and famously declared that America had lost too much of its old moral fiber. Hook. How could a man revered by children as Grandpa McCoy also cheer on segregationist politics? Behind closed doors, his rhetoric turned sharper. Biographer Carl Rollison uncovered that Brennan once embraced far-right slogans and even allegedly stocked a bunker in case of Soviet threat. He reportedly rejoiced when Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy were killed, shocking cast members on his own show. That darker side clashed painfully with his gentle public image. Hook, the grandfather figure wrapping a gift of prejudice in cowboy charm. He didn't keep his opposition private either. Brennan accused Hollywood elites like Henry Fonda of undermining America with liberal activism, and even deemed Kirk Douglas a dangerous rebel for breaking the blacklist. His criticisms grew so pointed that insiders whispered of lists he kept naming stars he felt were malevolent influences. Hook, the man who helped popularize the Western hero, now saw Hollywood as the real outlaw. Yet in Joseph, locals recall him fondly. He showed up at rodeos, chatted at the local cafe, and sometimes disguised himself to pull pranks on store clerks. He was, by most accounts, a neighbor first, even if his worldview was controversial. He once insisted the motel's name honored native culture, dedicating it to Chief Joseph and the Nez Perce Still. His political stances left a tension that gnawed at both town and industry. While he embraced ranch life, his career in Hollywood persisted. In the 1960s, he continued guest roles, including on The Guns of Will Sonnet, even as he spent more time in Oregon. Hook. He was still acting, but the man behind the roles was living two contradictory lives. One on-screen legend, the other off-screen firebrand. Research into his ranch years reveals he maintained a routine, splitting seasons between filming and ranching. He'd return to Joseph, lean into the saddle, and vanish into the landscape. Sources describe it as his spiritual reset, a place where acting had less meaning than the rhythm of livestock and land. Hook. Behind that, Oscar was a man who hungered for the simple satisfaction of a day's honest labor. By the time he died in 1974, at age 80, he had left two legacies. One was Hollywood's lovable character actor, immortalized in westerns, sitcoms, and iconic roles. The other was a polarizing political figure whose views and actions stirred controversy. In Joseph, his influence remains visible. In a motel, a theater repurposed as a church, a store still standing, and a rodeo tradition continuing strong. The land he bought echoes with the footsteps of descendants carrying on the ranch work, but the tension lingers. Can a man be both hero and hardliner? Loved by many, loathed by others? The story took its most dramatic turn when Brennan's private moral crusade came face-to-face with Hollywood's most legendary figures. Errol Flynn, the swashbuckling rebel adored by millions, was to Brennan the embodiment of unchecked indulgence and moral collapse. It wasn't simply Flynn's on-screen bravado, it was his off-screen wildness that Brennan found repellent. Hook. How did a hero's reckless charm become a symbol of everything Brennan despised? That question rippled through Brennan's private reflections, revealing a tension between admiration and disdain. Jane Fonda entered the spotlight next, the daughter of Brennan's once criticized Henry Fonda, but now a lightning rod. Her controversial trip to North Vietnam in 1972, earning her the vilified moniker Hanoi Jane, cemented Brennan's view of her not just as a dissenting voice, but as a traitor to patriotism. His reaction was visceral, a deep chasm between ideological devotion and her bold activism. Hook. Can a daughter's fight for justice become a son's greatest betrayal? Meanwhile, her brother Peter Fonda was celebrated for Easy Rider, itself a cultural earthquake. Brennan saw Peter's role in that countercultural explosion as youth's rebellion slipping into recklessness. He worried about generational decay, that the echo of freedom could mutate into moral drift. That anxiety defined much of Brennan's critique. Then came Natalie Wood, an icon whose tragic story stirred whispers in Hollywood's shadows. Brennan may have seen her not just as a casualty of fame, but as evidence of the industry's darker toll. He reportedly regarded the controversy around her death as symbolic of the price unimaginable to outsiders. Hook. When innocence meets insider darkness, what's left underneath? Burt Lancaster and Bing Crosby rounded out Brennan's crosshairs. Lancaster, champion of civil rights, personified progressive Hollywood in Brennan's eyes. He saw Lancaster's unapologetic liberalism as an almost theatrical threat to conservative values. Crosby, meanwhile, personified charm and contrast, beloved publicly, but, according to accounts from his son Gary, a harsh figure behind closed doors. Brennan interpreted this duality as emblematic of Hollywood's polished yet hollow heart. Hook. Can polished perfection mask ruthless personal cost? Most astonishing of all was Brennan's rumored antipathy toward James Stewart, the clean-cut, decorated veteran who seemed untouchable. But Brennan reportedly harbored private resentments against even this paragon. With Stewart aligned publicly with liberals, despite being a Republican himself, Brennan perceived him as emblematic of the industry's subtle betrayal. Hook. Can someone seen as America's everyman still represent a cultural threat in another's eyes? Elizabeth Taylor, with her blockbuster career and bold public life, drew Brennan's scorn too, not just for her politics, but for what he saw as excess. Her multiple marriages, activism for LGBTQ+ rights, and glamorous image signaled to him the triumph of spectacle over substance. To Brennan, her influence was a loud declaration that Hollywood wasn't just entertaining, it was reshaping values. But Brennan's late career years tell another story. After leaving the ranch in Oregon for quieter retirement in Moore Park, Ventura County, he became ill, diagnosed with emphysema, and the last of his acting roles faded by 1972 when he was hospitalized. His final screen cameo was filmed posthumously in the western Smoke in the Wind, 1975. He passed away on September 21, 1974, at 80, and was buried at San Fernando Mission Cemetery. More than just an obituary, his life remains an emotional study in contrast. Fierce convictions paired with deep personal flaws, generosity to neighbors, and suspicion of colleagues. An Oscar legend with a bunker fear that Hollywood was losing America. That duality is the heart of why his story still sparks debate. Was he a cultural guardian or cultural casualty? Let's look at his lifestyle and financial arc to reveal a final layer of contrast. Brennan's wealth was grounded not in glitzy mansions or exotic cars, it was in land and legacy. He owned a sprawling 12-acre ranch in Moore Park and the 12,000-acre Lightning Creek property in Oregon, passed down through his descendants. He invested in community with a motel, theater, store, and donated to local rodeo traditions. Unlike peers who flaunted Farrah, his watch choices were never tabloided, but you can imagine a functional timepiece, perhaps a basic Rolex or Hamilton, suited for ranch work rather than red carpets. He never publicly owned a private jet, choosing instead to fly commercial and taxi between locales, which saved on maintenance and aligned with his humble values. On the business side, he formed Brennan Westgate Productions, co-producing Shootout at Big Sag, 1962, and retained ownership of The Real McCoys, ensuring long-term residuals, a savvy move rarely credited. He released chart-topping spoken records like Old Rivers through Liberty Records, diversifying his income stream. Financially, he avoided risky speculation seen in some celebrity counterparts. His real estate losses came early, but his return to land investment offered stability. Regarding insurance, while no flashy narrative mentions private jets insured or multi-million-dollar policies, it's clear Brennan prioritized health coverage late in life, as his emphysema battles required consistent care before his passing. His wealth lessons? They are simple. Invest in tangible assets, build recurring revenue, stay grounded, but prepare for life's unpredictability. Compared to Hollywood's glamour-driven elite, Brennan's journey stands apart. He built two legacies, screen legends and local community pillars, then withdrew to air clearer than any spotlight. His story reminds us that celebrity elegance can coexist with ideological rigidity, and that wealth is more often rooted in substance than spectacle. When we reflect on Brennan's life, we see an actor who never fully shed his working-class roots, even at his peak. He was a man haunted by contradictions, a loving patriarch with ideologies some today find untenable, a community builder with suspicions of his own world, a Hollywood icon who, at his end, chose the quiet company of land over fame's noise. Walter Brennan's story isn't just a tale of stardom. It's a window into the soul of a nation in flux. A man of deep faith and unshakable ideals, he watched the industry he helped shape evolve into something he no longer recognized. To some, he was a moral guardian. To others, a stubborn relic. But beneath his judgments was a deeper fear that the values he cherished were quietly slipping away. The names on his secret list weren't just actors. They were symbols of change, of progress, of rebellion. And that clash still defines Hollywood today. Drop a comment below. What legacy do you think lasts longer? The roles actors play, or the beliefs they stand for? Subscribe for more untold stories of icons who shaped, challenged, and sometimes divided history. Because behind every beloved face, there's a deeper truth waiting to be uncovered. In the end, Walter Brennan's story isn't just about a man, it's about a mirror. A reflection of the values, fears, and fractures that once simmered beneath Hollywood's glamour, and still echo today. His convictions were fierce, sometimes flawed, but always deeply human. He saw a dream factory turning into something unrecognizable. And whether you see him as a prophet or a relic, his warnings remain hauntingly relevant. The stars he judged went on to shape culture, challenge norms, and, in some cases, change the world. But Brennan reminds us that behind every spotlight is a shadow, and every legend leaves a legacy far more complicated than their headlines. If this story moved you, share your thoughts below. Because the line between hero and villain, icon and outcast, is rarely where we expect it.